So, hi everyone. I'm Dan Sorgan from Spec Bank, and I am excited today to chat with commercial director and Spec Bank member Eric Krehbiel about his latest spec commercial, which was picked up by a brand. So, congratulations.
Thank
Uh,
you.
we're we're going to talk to Eric about what went into producing the spot, how he got a brand to run it, and how he became a commercial director. So, hello, Eric. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to jump into this.
Awesome. So before we get into how you got your spot picked up by a company and the spot itself, can you give us a brief background on you and how you came to direct?
Yes. So I started just kind of writing scripts and shooting short films when I was a kid, like 12, 13, and just kind of did that over the years and really fell in love with video production as a profession in college. After interning at a couple of ad agencies and kind of learning that world a little bit. And then as I was kind of finishing out college, I started working on commercial sets more to try to figure out that side of the business. So I PA'd for a bit and then I PC'd and did a couple other things. And then I kind of took a step back for about 6 months because I realized um, well, before I took a step back, I had done my first short film, which ended up being it was a fairly low budget, but it ended up being logistically very complex. Like we shut down multiple roads in my hometown of Durham, North Carolina.
Nice.
And so after doing that and then going on to commercial sets, I was kind of like, I think I sort of get what directing is. So I took a step back, saved up money for about 6 months, just doing small side projects for small businesses. And then I really jumped into doing these two spec spots, which you wrote. And that has really kind of astronomically launched new opportunities for me over the last couple months. And it's been pretty amazing after doing those and completing them, the kinds of opportunities that have been opening up all of a sudden. So I'm
Wow.
definitely very grateful for Spec Bank as a resource.
Oh, thanks. And that's amazing. Well, we'll get into more of how it's opened doors for you because I want to hear more about that. And I know I'm sure a lot of directors do. That's really cool.
I'm sure.
But so without further ado, let's watch your spot. And this is for Red Oak Brewery.
All right.
Nice job. So I think it's like every director's dream when they shoot a spec spot to get it actually run and make the spec spot real. And of course that makes it eligible for awards as well.
Mhm.
Most directors shoot a spec to show off their skills and their style, but to put it on their reel for future work as a way of getting
Right.
future work. But I think in the back of your mind, you're thinking, wouldn't it be great if someone actually broadcast this spot? So,
Right.
you've done it. I know they're going to broadcast it, but same thing.
Right.
So, tell us the story of how you went from sort of finding the script and shooting it to actually getting in touch with Red Oak Brewery for them to shoot the spot, getting them interested and them agreeing that they want to broadcast it.
Yeah, definitely. So I decided last fall that I was gonna do two spec commercials to kind of fill out the portfolio, and just looking through Spec Bank and different scripts that were kind of in the genre and the style that I was wanting to play with. I found Body Language, which I think was for Heineken originally, and I read it and it really clicked right away. Like I knew in about 30 seconds how I wanted to shoot it, and I thought it would be a pretty interesting thing to play with. So we committed to that script, and then as we were prepping, we were kind of talking about, okay, we want to my producer and I sort of went back and forth about what brand we could actually get to potentially pick it up. And the hope originally was to get a brand attached during pre-production before we shot, so we could get like, branded beer glasses and free bottles and stuff from them for shooting. And then we approached like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 breweries based in North Carolina, and which was local for us. And almost none of them showed any interest. It was pretty, yeah, it was pretty astounding because we were like, hey, we want to give you this really expensive free thing. And they were like, oh, sure, whatever.
Huh.
So a lot of places just kind of shrugged us off, or they were like, yeah, we might be interested, and then they would take it to higher ups, and then they would say like, no, we're not trying to do this, we don't know these guys, and that kind of thing. So it was really pretty tough, and I wasn't sure if we were going to get a brand attached. And then so during shooting, we shot just a couple different bottles of brands that we had been in touch with. I think we did like 4 different brands. One of them was Red Oak. One was 2 different beers for Foothills, I think, or some other brewing company. And so then we figured during shooting, once we got to post, we would have a couple options to kind of keep trying to pursue getting a brand attached. And it was a little bit touch and go at first, but then my producer um he had kind of established a bit of a relationship with Red Oak through another like concert related business he had. And he talked to them a bit, kind of schmoozed with them, and eventually he got a deal kind of worked out where they would give his concert business a couple of kegs, I think, at cost or for free in exchange for us giving them the finished spot with all the Red Oak branding. And we would give them like a couple different formats. We're doing a vertical 16 by 9 export as well as or yeah, 16 by 9 and 9 by 16. And then we're also giving them some still images and things like that. So we delivered like a couple of different deliverables for them, and we were able to lock it in a couple of weeks into post production. So I guess the key, I think, looking back on it now, is just kind of persistence and kind of not giving up on the idea that you could maybe get it picked up, and really also being realistic about who would call you back, because we figured right away like Heineken and Bud Light or something was not going to happen.
Hmm.
So we sort of threw that out the window early in pre-production and focused more on smaller scale brewing companies that we could actually get in the door with and have a conversation with.
Wow. So you got 9 rejections, but you didn't give up. Nine's a lot.
Yeah, something like that. It was,
Wow.
yeah.
So how much did it cost you to produce the spot?
I think in total after post we spent about $11,000. I'm pretty sure it
Okay.
was it
And of
was
course,
between 10 and 11, just on the spot. So
gotcha.
it was a decent budget.
What would you say? I mean, just really quickly, what would you say is like the breakdown of your, but like what was the bulk of that expense?
Well, I would say like I would say about 80% of that was production, because pre-production, everyone involved was just super passionate about getting the thing made. So, because it's a spec, so we weren't really paying anyone for prep days or something. And then production, we had a 14-person crew on set on
Hmm.
this location in this bar in Hillsborough, North Carolina. And then about we had 2 key casts and then about 14 extras on set for most of our shooting time.
Gotcha.
So it was a pretty good sized crew. It was a pretty decent sized set, especially for a spec commercial. And then we had a couple people who owned the bar also there kind of working with us to make sure we weren't gonna break anything and stuff like that.
Sure.
So yeah, most of it was shooting, and then I really wanted to shell out for a colorist in post because that's what I've heard from a lot of people that production companies and producers look at when you do a spec spot is the
Yeah.
coloring job.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Yeah. So
So
we
you
really
did.
shelled out for that. Yeah.
How much was that?
That was, I think we paid our colorist for 3 days at 700 a day. So
Okay.
2100 total.
For both spots or just for the Red
Oh,
Oaks?
that was for both spots actually.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll probably show the other spot too.
Okay.
So obviously shooting a spec spot versus somebody actually running the spot brings up different issues that you may not think about, like I assume how you pay your talent, or if they are in a union, then that's impacted, and also music licensing. So like what else, what sort of things did you have to deal with once Red Oak said they wanted to run your spot?
Right. Yeah. So it definitely became much more complicated with this beer spot than with the other one. We had to work out usage fees for our key cast for the beer spot with the talent agency that they were repped by because we hired them through the talent agency. So you basically have to get an idea of what Red Oak is going to do with the spot. Are they just going to put it on social or run it on television or whatever they're going to do with it? And then you sort of package that up with the talent agency and negotiate a fee that seems reasonable to both parties. And then that renews on an annual basis. So it's like every year you have to renew that license. And then with music licensing, it was a pretty it has been a little bit of a headache, but it was a bit easier than it might have been because my producer is also involved with a music label that has pretty good relationships with a couple of bands in the Southeast. And so we actually had a decent catalog of music to look at thanks to that we would be able to get a license from. So we ended up going with a band that we're both pretty close with. We have a pretty good relationship with, and we're finalizing numbers and everything on that deal to work out that license right now. But it's significantly easier since we already had a foot in the door with a music label than it would have been if we were just kind of cold calling like Universal or something. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you have advice for other directors who might want to get their spec spot in front of a client?
I would say cast a wide net of brands that could work with that spot that you're going to make. And I would also say cast a smart net. Like we only got Red Oak because my producer already had some kind of relationship with them. And at first, in pre-production, I was like, no, 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 I don't think it fits their brand voice or something like that. And then as we got to shooting in post, I was like, yeah, let's please call them. Let's see if we can get them. And all that kind of stuff sort of went out the window.
Right.
So yeah, I would just say, leverage any and all relationships you have. Definitely cultivate a team around you for the project. Like, don't try to do it as minimally as possible
Mm-hmm.
because, you never know who your assistant director or your producer or somebody is going to know that they can reach out to when you guys are in a pinch with, like, say, trying to license music, for
Yeah.
example.
Right. Use
So
your
th-
network.
those are the couple of things that I would definitely say. And then also just make it a damn good spot as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you did. So how has this impacted your career? You said earlier it was phenomenal, the reception you've gotten and what it's done for you. So tell us a little about that.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I would hype up the reception so much to not seem self-aggrandizing or anything, but I will say like it has legitimized a lot of conversations that I was trying to have with people beforehand. Like after I did my first short film a year or two ago, I kind of thought in the moment like, oh, I'm a director now because I've one short film. Everyone's going to take me seriously. And that was not the case at all because I didn't know anybody in the industry and I only had one piece that I really felt good about on my portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And so after doing some time on sets and PAing and kind of working my way up a little bit and getting to know some people and then doing these spots, it really kind of brought me up a level, I would say, in terms of my legitimacy as someone walking into a meeting going, I'm a director, please listen to my ideas, read my treatment, that kind of thing. So I would say since I finished them, and even just after doing them, I think a lot of people back home in Raleigh, Durham, took me a little more seriously just for the fact of having spent $11,000 making a portfolio piece. They were like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
wow, that's pretty cool." And then after seeing the finished work and seeing that it was pretty much at a professional level, I've been able to get a lot more calls with producers. And I actually just left a coffee meeting this morning with a producer who was like, "Yeah, I'll put your name in the hat whenever we have a music video or a commercial come up," and
Great.
that kind of
Wow.
thing.
That's
So
wonderful.
yeah, it's well, once you kind of get a couple pieces together, and they look good and they feel good, and hopefully you get a brand involved in one of them, then people start to go, "Oh, this guy actually might know a thing or two." So
Gotcha.
yeah.
So last question, what's your plan? I mean, I think we can sort of ascertain, but what's your plan for you, the future of your career? What would be like the ultimate goal for you?
Right. Well, I definitely want to direct more commercials, I would say. Um, and then eventually I would like to hopefully get to do some work in film and television. Because I also write in my free time, so getting to write and direct a feature film is definitely like the dream.
Hmm.
But in the next, I would say looking at the next 2 years, definitely getting on a roster at a production company based in New York or LA. If I could get one of the big ones like Anonymous or Pretty Bird, that would be surreal. But if I can just get like any decently reputable production company to take me seriously enough to get on their roster and sort of bid on projects on a regular basis, that's pretty much the goal. And on the film and TV side, I actually did recently get offered the chance to direct a pilot
Wow.
this summer by a
Nice.
friend down in the Atlanta market. So that was really just random chance. So I don't really know how that's gonna fit into everything right now.
Hmm.
But yeah,
That's cool. Well, let's take a look at your other spot, and this one was for Gatorade.
yes.
Well, Eric, thank you for joining me and telling us about your spec spot. I wish you the best of luck in your directing career, and I hope we get to do this again.
Me too.
Thanks.
Thank you.